For this afternoon and tonight, a significant winter storm, including heavy snow with limited freezing.
Hello and welcome to the SnowBrains podcast, where it's my job to interview the most intelligent people in the snow sports industry and pass their fascinating knowledge on to you, our listeners. I'm your host, Miles Clark. I'm a professional free skier, a professional mountain guide, a UC Berkeley molecular cell biology graduate, the founder and CEO of SnowBrains, and for some reason, I skied directly into a 50-foot tall rock wall, pretty deep in the Patagonia backcountry in August 2019, and I put a 3-inch laceration on my kneecap and significantly tore my MCL. I was able to close up the cut with my friend Greggy's steri strips, and it took us about 3 hours to get me out of there. I was really happy to slide into the backseat of a taxi once we got back to the real world, and even happier when the surgeon told me that my knee was going to be okay. This episode of the SnowBrains podcast is brought to you by Icon Pass. Winter 21-22 now on sale at iconpass.com, and the mountain community is locking in another season of stoke, from first chair to last laughs. Across more unique ski destinations and more days on the mountain, now is the time to plan for another year of adventure. Own the season, own the stories, own the stoke. My guest today is Angela Hawse, the president of the American Mountain Guide Association, or AMGA. Angela has over 30 years of mountain guiding experience and is a fully certified IFMGA mountain guide. Angela is the sixth of only 11 women to ever be fully certified in the USA. In 2011, Angela was awarded the AMGA Guide of the Year. Angela is a senior instructor team member for the AMGA and was the first woman to join their elite group of instructors in 2006. She's been on the AMGA board of directors for over 10 years. She's been the lead guide for ISAC's Expeditions Antarctica ski trip for the past 4 years. Angela also guides heli skiing for Telluride Helitrax. As a minority in a male-dominated profession, Angela does her best to mentor and encourage other women getting into the outdoors and guiding. She was a former co-owner of Chicks Climbing and Skiing and has been a key player in their work teaching women self-reliance in technical mountain sports since the year 2000. Angela is engaged in inclusion and diversity work with the AMGA and several of her sponsors that are making positive change in the outdoor industry. Hello, Angela. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. How are you, friend?
Hey, bud. I'm great. I'm totally stoked to be in your stoked presence, and it's great to see you. Thanks, Miles.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm stoked to have you here. And so I know that you've been injured, but I ask everybody this: when did you ski last?
Funny enough, I got out for the first time since I broke my leg in 3 places yesterday, and did 4 laps around the ball field across from my house on cross country skis. So
that counts.
I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, you've got to be.
Yeah. It actually feels better than walking, which is remarkable. And I'm going to be able to start getting out now. So the last time I had my AT skis on was November 30th. I got 3 days in before I broke my leg.
And we'll get into the leg breaking because we have to. It's not everybody breaks their leg in 3 places. It's something to learn there.
Yeah.
You might not want to, but we're doing it, Angela.
Okay.
So I really want to dig today into your guiding, your mountaineering, your skiing, your climbing careers, which all overlap, and just kind of let our audience know who you are and what you've done, because it's remarkable. How many days do you ski per year?
I never keep track, but it's never enough. I would guess between 100 and 125.
I like the never enough. That's the best answer we've gotten yet. So how many of those days are backcountry days, do you think?
I'd say a solid 85% are human powered, and in a good guiding season, probably 15% of those are heli ski guiding.
Oh, wow. Okay. So a vast amount of those are in the backcountry, almost everything but 5%. How many of those days do you think are guiding days?
Probably 40 to 50 in a good guiding season.
That's a good balance. And then, I have this question have you skied on every continent now?
No, I haven't been to Africa.
Okay.
I would ski on Africa.
You just go with the ice axe guys. They're always, people, they're always headed out to Morocco. So, I mean, I think that'll be an easy one for you.
Easy.
They say February, Morocco. That's the move. I'm going to do it.
Is that right?
Too. Yep. That's the move.
Excellent.
What's your main goal when you go out skiing?
To have fun.
What's your biggest accomplishment in skiing?
Surviving 3 decades of skiing in the North San Juan snowpack.
Which, if our listeners don't know, is one of the most dangerous, Colorado's the most dangerous snowpack, or I guess I should say the most deadly snowpack in the USA. And we'll get into that moving forward. What's your biggest accomplishment in climbing?
Getting to the south summit of Mount Everest and having that be high enough.
That's intelligence right there. I love that. And I do want to ask you more questions about Everest moving forward as well. How do you define yourself?
I define myself as a positive, curious, grateful, and nature-loving mountain athlete.
What's your favorite place to ski, or where's your favorite place to ski?
Definitely the Antarctic Peninsula. And even better when you're there.
Oh, thank you. And we'll definitely get more into Antarctica soon. But if you had to pick a couple, what might be your favorite mountain ranges?
Definitely the Tetons in Wyoming, Pakistan's Karakoram, and aesthetically the Patagonia range in Argentina, hands down.
Oh, I love Argentina. Where's your favorite place to climb?
I think the Tetons.
Really? Awesome. Yeah, because you were an XM guide for a long time. You've probably done a few laps on the Grand.
Yeah, and it's not the best rock climbing in the world, but I'm at heart, I'm an alpinist. So, locally in the U.S., that's definitely my favorite place.
Yeah, I've been in the Tetons most of this winter, and the place is just spectacular.
Incredible.
And on that note, what do you think is the best month of the year for skiing and riding?
My favorite is April. I can ski with a lot more confidence in the snowpack, and the days are longer.
If you had to pick one sport, skiing or climbing, what would it be?
Oh, it's a tough question. I didn't grow up skiing, so I feel like I'm still making up for lost time. I love them both, but over the past 10 years, I have to say skiing has definitely been my favorite sport.
Yes. When you're out guiding, do you prefer guiding skiing or do you prefer guiding climbing?
Skiing.
And why is that?
It's because it's so dynamic and it's really easy to just share that stoke with people when they're moving. The pace is faster. They're moving through the mountains quickly. And I love guiding climbing, but it's very static, and skiing so dynamic, and it's just so easy to show people a great time in the mountains.
I like guiding skiing more because you don't have to have such rigid goals. The goal with my clients is almost always let's have fun. Or climbing, exactly. It's like, mountain climbing is like get to the summit. You don't get to the summit, it's a defeat and everybody's upset. But skiing is like, wow, we just had an awesome time.
Totally.
What would you do if you couldn't ski or climb?
Oof. Well, if I couldn't ski, I'd climb. And if I couldn't climb, I'd ski.
That's why I asked this special question. I knew I had you
That's
here.
That's a very special question. Wow. I think I would go spend a lot of time in the largest trees that I could find and walk amongst them.
I like that. We'll see you in California in the redwoods then. What scares you the most in the mountains?
Well, the uncertainty. And that typically comes in the form of like thunderstorms, extreme weather, rockfall, and definitely avalanches in the winter.
What do you love most in the mountains?
I love just feeling like I'm home, that I'm grounded, and that I'm present, and I'm only doing and thinking about what I'm doing.
Almost meditative, right? You're so focused, you're in the moment. I feel that too in the mountains. That is special. Nobody's said that yet on this show, so I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. What's the funniest accident you've had in the mountains? For me, I've been very fortunate that I haven't had a lot of accidents in the mountains, but the funniest one was certainly falling flat on my face after descending in the dark from a less than 24-hour ascent of the north face of the Grand Teton. Like I literally just fell asleep walking and just face down on the trail. Whoa. I was fine. I didn't get injured, but it was a sudden start for sure. My friends were entertained by it. Well, not many people have fallen asleep walking. I mean, that shows you what an effort you put out. Wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah. I climbed it with a bunch of XM guides. There was 4 of us, and we had all guided the Grand the day before. So we were all fairly tired by the time we came down from the North Face the following day.
That's a hell of a push.
Yeah, it was a push.
What's the scariest accident you've had in the mountains?
You know, it was in Patagonia, and it wasn't my accident, but I was one of the rescuers, first on the scene to a guy who had fallen over 1,000 feet off of Fitzroy, and he survived to tell the tale, which is remarkable. Jeez. But it took us 3 days with an international rescue effort, and it took us 3 days to get this kid down from where he landed, and he was unconscious the entire time.
Whoa.
And it was just a lot of, technical terrain and international effort, speaking multiple languages and charades. And it was certainly a harrowing experience where there was considerable risk to the rescuers and him surviving. And so for me, that was a big wake up.
That sounds absolutely intense. A 3-day rescue. And just for our listeners, the Fitzroy is this amazing granite tower in southern Patagonia. It's one of the most challenging rock climbs in the world in my mind. And so, not easy terrain. And just that area of Patagonia is just the most rugged terrain. So I can imagine what those 3 days were like. Yeah.
In 95, it felt a lot more remote than it does now.
I bet. Jeez.
The town of Shelton didn't really have much going on. And we really didn't know what we were handing this kid off to.
Yeah, geez, that's intense. Thank you for sharing that. What have been the most fear-inducing and biggest risk ventures of your life? And this doesn't have to be skiing and climbing.
Certainly, I spent a lot of time traveling solo on Everest because I got sick and wasn't able to keep on the time plan of my team. And traveling through the Khumbu Icefall 8 times was probably one of the riskiest things I've ever done. But probably the most fear-inducing thing I've done is crossing the Drake Passage because I'm a landlubber. And I tell you, if it wasn't for drugs to help me sleep through the whole thing, it would feel really risky.
That's right. You're one of the people we don't see on the crossing. So for the listeners, I've traveled with Angela on this trip 5 times now, and we crossed the Drake Passage from the southern tip of South America to the tip of the Antarctic Peninsula. And I think it's considered one of the roughest seas in the world. And we're on a 333-foot boat, and we get tossed sometimes. So if you're not comfortable on boats, it's probably what Angela is reflecting here. It's a harrowing experience.
It's rugged. And then you guys are all partying while, a few of us are just fully horizontal.
Oh man, I'm not one of the ones partying. I'm the one just hanging on. I'm deliberating constantly. Should I take the drugs or not? I don't know. But usually I don't have to. But it's a hell of a passage.
It's a hell of a passage.
How many friends have you lost in the mountains?
Close to 24 good friends.
Wow. And that's relatively common on this podcast. It's, we live in the mountains long enough. It's amazing how many you might lose. But you did recently break your leg. It sounds like you had a relatively serious leg injury at least, and you had a rescue. Can you tell us what happened? Tell us that story.
Yeah, I can see the site out my kitchen window.
Oh, really?
It's like 1,000-foot hill. Local here where I live in Southwest Colorado, that a friend who was training for Makalu started going up and down it. And so I partnered up with him, and we shoulder some heavy packs and go up and down it. And I had spotted this other way down from my kitchen window that looked interesting, so we could turn it into a loop. And so we set off pioneering across there. And it was much looser than our standard up route. And we went over a couple little cliff bands. And at the bottom of the third cliff band, I just stepped on some very loose rocks. They gave. And my pack kind of was pushing me forward as my left leg went out to brace the fall. And as I landed my left leg, as I'm looking down, my foot is 90 degrees to my knee because the rock that I landed on gave, and the weight of my pack kind of crunched me over. And so I knew I immediately broke it. Fortunately, it wasn't excruciatingly painful. It's really remarkable. I broke it in 3 places. I called my neighbors. My speed dial is my neighbors. One of them, he's on the search and rescue team. He's a nurse. He's the search and rescue team of the Black Canyon of the Gunnison, which is like real deal. And the other 2 neighbors are also very versed with rope systems and rescue. And they were on site within an hour. And my nurse friend had pain meds to put on board. And
that's a good friend.
That's a good friend. Amazing. They came down from the top, and we're, deliberating where to go up or down. And they decided going up was the way to go. And they brought ropes and 5-to-1s and all that kind of stuff and a couple harnesses. And my friend that is on SAR in the Black Canyon put me on his back. I had a harness on. He had a harness on. He rigged us both to a rope that he had set up for the other 2 guys to have a 5-to-1. And first they had to clean out a lot of really loose rocks before we could go up through these weaknesses in the cliff bands.
Wow.
And then he basically kept me off the ground. It was really scary, but the guy's he's a machine. It was amazing. He basically used the ski pole and his hand to keep him off the ground. And they pulled us. He just kind of walked up the hill with me on his back, and it didn't take that long. They had to do a couple of resets, and before I knew it, I was up on top, headed to the urgent care to get an X-ray, and it was I did a spiral fracture on my fibula and avulsion fractures on the bottom of my fibula and I guess it's called the malleolus on the fibula and tibia. Remarkably, where it fractured on my ankle was low enough on both sides that my ankle joint is still held in place solidly. And so it's just a matter of the bones healing and the ligaments and everything healing, but I didn't have to get surgery. So I really? Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
I know.
From what you just described, it sounds like you should be, in traction.
Totally.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Wow.
And then everybody is telling me wow, you're really lucky your bones broke instead of a bad sprain because it'll heal much faster. And right now I'm on week 10. And like I said, I got out on my cross country skis yesterday.
I'm so happy to hear that. And I love the story. I can't believe the guy put you on his back. I mean, maybe that's something they teach in search and rescue in the Black Canyon of the Gunnison. That's smart, right? It's basically how can we get rid of the friction of a backboard against rocks or dragging on anything? Put you on my back. Let's go, lady. That's amazing.
I know. Exactly.
I'm so impressed.
And he does this on vertical rescues, getting pulled up cliffs in the Black Canyon with the victim on his back, basically using his hands and feet to keep him off the rocks.
Wow. And this guy
this was small potatoes for him. Yeah. He's a beast.
Jeez, that's really cool. I mean, I think that's something our listeners will really tune into. That is unique. I mean, because you can visualize it so quickly.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really crazy. Well, I'm so glad that it wasn't too bad. I'm glad that you have the most badass neighbors I've ever heard of.
Right.
And I love that you're already skiing again. And I very much hope that I'm going to see you in Antarctica in November.
Oh, you bet you are.
Yes, I like that. So you've been on ski expeditions and climbing expeditions all over the world, but which was your favorite ski expedition?
Well, I go back to Antarctica. It's got every ingredient for an adventure and an expedition, except you're in a 4-star floating hotel. So it's pretty cush in that
Mint
regard.
on the pillow.
Yeah. Probably the favorite actual, what I would consider an expedition would be skiing across Lapland from Sweden to Norway over a 28-day period when I just graduated from college with my boyfriend and another friend.
That is so cool. And just tell me what you saw there, because nobody knows what Lapland. I mean, this is far northern, very tippy top of Norway and Sweden. What's it like up there?
We saw very little life. We saw 3 days into the trip, we saw a bunch of Finnish Boy Scouts that were at a hut, which they were burly.
I bet.
Yeah. And then after that, for the next 23 days, we didn't see any people at all. We ran into a lap herder that was on a snowmobile 23 days into the trip when we had gotten to Norway. Aside from that, it was just stunning scenery. We actually didn't see the Northern Lights. It must have been a little late. Days were really long. It was 1987, I think.
Wow.
So my memory isn't that great, but it was springtime. So we didn't see the Northern Lights. We saw wolverine tracks once, but very, very little wildlife. No reindeer. Obviously, there's too much snow at that point. We saw a lot of what are known as lapkotas, which they're almost like a Navajo hogan that are built with birch branches and peat. They're these neat little huts that you can go into. Some of them were intact. Some of them had kind of collapsed, but we would set up our kitchens in these little things. And we planned our route because they were actually on the map. And we planned our route based on where we would find these kotas. And they were amazing places to get out of storms and feel a bit of the lap culture, which was amazing because they're built by the reindeer herders who follow the reindeer herds around throughout the summer. So they're littered across Lapland, at least in the area that we skied to. We saw a lot of really big storms, and there were a number of days where we were just hunkered down and could barely go out. There were a couple places that we had huts that we could stay in along the way, a few places, but mostly we were tent camping.
That is so cool. I think I'm tapping into the mindset of why that was so interesting, because it just sounds ridiculously unique, especially with the huts and the culture and the food. And, just anytime you feel like you're on the moon, it's a really memorable trip.
Exactly. And we did. We totally felt out there. Yeah.
Where have you not skied, but you really want to ski there?
Oh, easy. Gulmarg, India.
Me too. Okay.
Yeah. Bill from our trip. He always has these amazing stories, and freaking the video he shows skiing with a snow leopard. How amazingly unique is that? So
Bill Barker and Bill's Trips, look that place up. He invited me to come last year, but it didn't work with COVID. The shutdown happened right at that time. Yeah. But I'm definitely excited to go there moving forward. Do you ever watch ski movies? I ask every guest this, do you have a favorite ski movie?
I don't watch a lot of ski movies, but since I've been doing my rehab, I have been watching some. I must say, I love The Blizzard of Oz.
Yes.
It's classic. I mean, I just love Mike Hattrup. I'm a Mike Hattrup groupie.
He's such a nerd in those movies.
Such a nerd. Yeah. Scott Smith, they're just classic. So, I mean, they're super dorky with the old style skis and their outfits were great, but I just love it.
What challenges you most intellectually on a daily basis?
I think trying to stay objective and recognize my biases and really learning to understand the lens that I see the world through is vastly different than many other people on the planet.
That's a great answer. And we've gotten that from a few guests, especially with all the political action that's happening right now. So that's really good, is to try to see the world through other people's eyes. I think is a really valuable tool.
Yeah.
What's your favorite book or books?
Endurance, for sure, which is funny because I'm not a water fan, but I think it's just one of the all-time greatest tales of leadership and resilience and survival and teamwork that I've ever read.
Agree. I've read that book as well. It's amazing. It's Ernest Shackleton's journey to Antarctica, and they get shipwrecked and then they have to rescue themselves. And it's really dramatic and highly recommended by Angela and myself. So we just have to jump into it for a minute. The USA just lost 21 people in avalanches in the past 19 days, which is unprecedented. It's the single deadliest avalanche cycle in U.S. history. 7 of those 19 deaths were in Colorado in this little cycle. And then the USA has already seen 27 avalanche deaths this season. And, that's our average. We average 27 a year, and we're already there. And of those 27 deaths, 11 of them have been in Colorado. So my question is, what do you think is going on in the USA and Colorado this season to cause all these avalanche deaths?
It's a good question, Miles, and it's $1 million question. I don't know that I have the perfect insight for it by any means, because I haven't even had my feet on the snowpack this year.
Right.
But clearly it's just a tragic set of circumstances that I think have been intensified by the COVID pandemic and everybody just chomping at the bit to get outside. And I don't know what the numbers are at ski areas, but I would imagine we're seeing a lot more people venturing out where they can be in the mountains, a greater distance from people and not rely on lifts around a lot of people. And then I think just the stir craziness of last season kind of being shut down early with the skiing. Certainly the media and social media portraying backcountry skiing as a very popular and growing means to get outside and enjoy mountain sports.
Yes.
And so all of that combined is unfortunately coincided with an extremely dangerous snowpack. Ethan Green, which you interviewed early, he only remembers one season in the past 2 decades this bad. So we have a lot more people outside. We have people that are just feeling a bit of angst, wanting to move and express themselves and finding joy in being in the mountains, and unfortunately making bad decisions while we have a very poor snowpack. I guess that's my summary of what's happened.
That's really strong insight, Angela. I appreciate that, because that's how it feels to me, at least. It's this perfect storm of we have one of the worst snowpacks in a long time, plus the coronavirus pandemic pushing people outdoors a touch more than normal. Thank you for that insight. We'll move on to happier subjects here. So I do want to get into really quick that you were the AMGA Guide of the Year in 2011. And I love that. So you were and the AMGA is the American Mountain Guide Association. So you were the Guide of the Year in 2011. And that is awesome, Angela. Congratulations. So just for our listeners, how does the AMGA select the Guide of the Year? What are the selection criteria?
Candidates are nominated each year by the membership, and we have almost 4,500 members. And then the nominees are then voted on by the membership. And we have a number of different awards. We have a Lifetime Achievement in Guiding Award. We have an Educator of the Year and a few other awards. But the thing that defines the Guide of the Year is someone who's made outstanding contributions that point to value or have increased the value of the mountain guiding profession.
Well, that's awesome, Angela. So congrats again on that. And what did it mean to you, just emotionally? What did that mean to you to be the Guide of the Year?
Super humbling. And, it was a real validating of my passion and, like I said earlier, following my heart, and that's been in the right direction. And it also was validating that I do give back and I do contribute to my profession and in unique ways. And so it was super appreciated. I mean, the gratitude that I experienced from being recognized was immense.
And congratulations again. And speaking of following your heart, you've been a professional mountain guide for over 30 years, which is amazing and nuts. It's so much time in the mountains doing high level things. I love it. And so following your heart, how old were you when you started guiding?
5. I'm only 35 now. No.
Yeah. I like that.
I started guiding when I was a student at Prescott College before I graduated. I started guiding river trips down the Grand Canyon for Prescott College. They had a
Is
summer
that in
rafting
Flagstaff,
program.
Arizona?
It's in Prescott.
Prescott, Arizona.
If you're from Prescott, you call it Prescott like biscuit.
Okay.
But yeah, Prescott, Arizona.
It's in Arizona. Okay, awesome. That's so cool. And again, following your heart, when did guiding call to you? Like when you were young, before you got into guiding, what gave you this idea to become a guide?
I had no idea I would become a guide until I actually went to Prescott College and participated in their wilderness orientation program, which is a 3-week program that all the students go through, a wilderness experience that's typically led by senior students through remarkable parts of Arizona. And the year when I went to Prescott College, there were only 80 students and 18 faculty members. And my orientation
Whoa, that's
was
small.
I was so small, and my orientation group was super small. There was only one group, and my instructor was the head of the adventure education program there at the time, David Lovejoy, who has always been an inspiration to me. And we did a 3-day solo experience in the Grand Canyon, no food, on our own. And I just had a lot of time to really think about the experience I was having. And I realized that David and the other instructor were the happiest people I'd ever met in my life. And I wanted to be just like them. And I knew the path to doing that was discovering if the outdoors and a career in the outdoors seemed like it was for me. And so as soon as I got off of wilderness orientation, I quickly changed my track and studied at Prescott College to outdoor education. And I studied natural history at the same time, which fit really well. And that was what I initially came to study. So I took Prescott College, had all these great courses in learn how to rock climb, total immersion for 3 weeks. All you do is rock climb, top rope for a week, and then they send you off lead climbing. Whitewater kayaking, start out on the flats, and then week 2, you're kayaking down through grade 3 water. Everything was full immersion, and that's where I learned how to ski. We were all telemark skiers at the time, and
nice.
I learned campcraft and mountaineering and search and rescue, and just my immersion in all those programs and being exposed to the instructors that were teaching them totally reaffirmed that that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I did.
That's really cool. Sounds like just from day one, you were just by the book going through, instruction and, technical learning. And I love that you did the 3-day no food solo trip in the Grand Canyon. That sounds very shamanistic and meditative. And it does seem like a really good way to, almost force a really clear mindset on who you are and what you want to do. That sounds like a really incredible experience, especially at that age.
Yeah, it was very influential at the time, especially since we had hiked down into the Grand Canyon. And as a kid that grew up on the East Coast, where you don't even see the rocks because they're all covered in vegetation, to be in this immense theater and cathedral of like a history of time was very impactful for my life, and I'm sure a major influence for me.
Sounds like a pivotal turning point for you.
Yeah.
And so after 30 years of guiding, has it lost any of its luster? What keeps you excited about guiding?
I just love being in the mountains, and that has never waned. And I think I just have an inherent love of also people and teaching and sharing the experience. And every experience is so unique. It's so interesting. I guided in the Grand Teton for AMGA mountain guides for 13 seasons. And, sometimes clients would say, God, how do you do the same thing all summer? Don't you get bored climbing up the Grand Teton again and again? And, honestly, every experience was different. The people were different. The weather was different. The mountain was different. I was different. And so there's like this excitement that comes with the kind of thinking on your feet and the problem solving that you're doing along the way, each step of the way, and really trying to connect with your people and ensure that they're comfortable and having a safe experience. And they're right on the edge of like their comfort level, and just sharing that is remarkable. So it hasn't lost its spark for me. It's changed over time, but it's inherently it's all the same, and that I'm still passionate about it, and I love it.
And that's very clear right now for our listeners. Angela really lit up. Her face changed. She's looking up. I think you were imagining being out in the mountains. It was very cool to see you kind of go through that transformative state for a second. That was cool. This person loves the mountains. And so where's your favorite place to guide?
The Antarctic Peninsula.
And why is that?
Because it's just an adventure every day. There's no planning our routes by maps. We're not, there's just so much unknown, and you could look out at the snow and you have no idea if it's going to be a powder day, or is it going to be breakable crust? Is it going to be corn? The things that you see are so unexpected. Like you might be on the Zodiac on your way to a landing, and there might be orcas or a leopard seal. And inherently there's always penguins at the places that we launch from. And
get bored of penguins.
Yeah, you cannot get bored of penguins.
I think that's true.
It's the ultimate wilderness experience, and being such a nature girl, for me, it's just deeply soul nourishing to be in a place where people just can't live there year round, and the nature's just doing its thing. It's incredible.
I get to go on that trip with Angela, and it truly is. And we had a client this summer say that he loves Antarctica because it's God's creation untouched. And I love that quote. I love hearing her and saying it that way, because that's what it is. That's why it hits your eye so powerfully, because it's just the way nature made it. It's not been touched. It's amazing.
Let's take a quick break here and hear from this episode's sponsor, the Icon Pass. A brand new season unlocked, the promise of adventures ahead, and endless stoke on the horizon, now on sale. Own it all with the Icon Pass. With pass options starting at only $399 for an adult and exclusive spring savings, there's an adventure for every type of rider, both new to the mountain and longtime shredder. Lock in the 21-22 season with up to $200 savings on child passes, up to $100 in renewal discounts, and a new payment plan from as low as $0 down and 0% APR. From the second you score your pass, you've got an entire season of sweet stuff to look forward to. Explore pass options at iconpass.com.
What skills in guiding are you still working on? What skills do you want to get better at still?
Boy, the skills kind of stay the same. It's just it takes like constant diligence with practicing them. And so if I have a season where I don't have an alpine guiding season, being on snow and ice and mixed with rock, then those are the skills I need to work on, because it just takes constant practice to stay good at the nuances of some of the guiding skills, which help increase your speed and your efficiency to accomplish some of the bigger objectives. So, there's always nuances with rope management and being efficient and learning how to use new devices. There's constantly new equipment that's coming out on the market, and that takes considerable amount of time, just keeping up with the latest and greatest, because inherently the clients always have those on their harness and they want to know how to use them. And so I think just keeping up to date is the skills that I'm most working on.
Agreed. And I know for me, a lot of it is my human management skills as a guide, I think is because that's always so dynamic. It's different every group. And I feel like that's the thing I improve on the most, year over year. How important do you think personality is in guiding? Being able to relate to people, being able to communicate with them, introvert versus extrovert. Is it easier to guide as an extrovert? What's your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. Guiding is, as you know, it's about people. And
it really is.
I think a lot of people get into guiding with the dream that it's, going to enable you to fulfill your own goals by just having a job outside and getting to climb a lot. But that's really one part of it. But a bigger part of it is like the people, and it's providing your clients with a trip of a lifetime experience and making the best out of any situation. And certainly personalities factor into that. And I agree. One of the constant things to work on is just really how to interact with people and show interest in them. And I find that the experience isn't about me. And I don't feel like the clients want to learn about me. It's like they want to feel like I care about them and I'm interested in them and their life and their background. And I am. And it's truly a remarkable part of guiding is I've learned so much about the world through my clients, the types of things that they do for work and how that contributes to society. And because we operate a lot in a bubble as guides, we have a bit of a counterculture, same with the skiing and the climbing communities. Our lifestyles are so different than our clients are. And I think our clients often are absolutely fascinated by and want to learn about you sleep in the back of a truck? Like, how does that work? And you live on $20 a day? Like, really? And I think they're fascinated by it. But for me, I always try to help them understand the lifestyle, but I also really try to put a lot of emphasis in them. And for me, that's brought a lot of rewards in guiding that don't come from necessarily the medium or the movement over terrain. It's just like learning about people and all of our differences and similarities.
I've gotten to see you guide quite a bit over the years, and that's my favorite part. You have so many really strong pieces to your guiding, but to me, that's my favorite part. I think part of why I wanted to interview you is you're so good with your clients. You're interested in them. You're engaged with them. You want them to get the most out of this. And I think we've all had guides who are unfriendly or rude or egotistical, and it's just not fun. They're kind of like, I am here and you will do what I say. Where when I guide, the first thing I'll tell my clients is I work for you. I'm going to do my best to do my job the highest level I can, but I work for you. So tell me what you want. And I'm going to do what I can to make that happen. And I think you understand that mindset too. And that's what to me makes an awesome guide and so when I see you out there with your clients and the way you interact with them, even at dinner, all of it, it's just, you are never, trying to be, hey, I'm better than somebody else. You are like, hey, we're all here together. We're the same. We're equal. Let's do this. We're a team. And I love that, Angela. That lights me up.
Thanks, Miles.
Yeah, well, that lights me up. And I think that's why you're the friggin' president of the American Mountain Guides Association. It's a big part of it. I think you're just such a great person and that you have that skill set with people that not everybody has. So congratulations on being selected as the president of the American Mountain Guides Association, the AMGA. If I understand, you're only the second woman to serve as the president, and you've been the president since 2018. The question is, what's it been like being the president, and what's it been like during the COVID pandemic?
Great questions. Thank you for the congratulations.
You're welcome. It's so badass.
Yeah. It's never something that I thought I would do, but it's been a tremendous honor. It's been humbling. It's been empowering. It's been reaffirming to get to this point in my career that I can give back so much. So with all of that comes a lot of gratitude for the opportunity. It's been an intense year with the COVID situation, as you can imagine.
Gosh, I can't believe.
We run, what we do is we train guides and climbing instructors. And with the pandemic, everything shut down for us last fall. Starting end of February, early March, we canceled over 45 programs. And in each of those programs, there were, between 8 and 12 students. And so there was significant impact on the industry, which was really hard to be in a place where, what we do is we support guides and we weren't able to, provide the training and examination that folks had planned on to keep on top of their career targets. So we switched gears quickly. And what we did is we decided to really what we could do for the guides and climbing instructors in our industry was put together resources to help navigate the crisis and provide some support materials so people knew how they could navigate the unemployment system or apply for PPP, payroll protection program loans for their businesses and some of the smaller idle grants that were available. So our advocacy director, Matt Wade, put a tremendous amount of work into putting these resources together, which developed into a COVID crisis center for the industry. And we were able to put together a lot of webinars that were available to industry partners.
That's great.
It really helped all of us, even myself included as a guide, get through the tougher times financially, because a lot of guides were hit really hard with it. And other guides in some parts of the country were actually booming, and a lot of guides and guide services had a tremendous amount of work, and others were completely shut down. And then on top of it all, the Black Lives Matter movement happened in our country, and that had a significant impact on us as well. We have been engaged with or committed to our DEI work, meaning diversity, equity, and inclusivity, for over 5 years now. And we've done all kinds of things, such as training the instructor team and understanding our biases, and have done some staff training and some board training, and really trying to shift the culture to be one of inclusivity, because outward facing, we traditionally, and even now, the majority of our members are white male. And that's been the stereotype, as it has been with climbing and even skiing to a degree, when people are pursuing it professionally, since its inception here in the U.S. And we celebrated our 40th anniversary not too long ago. And so we have a long history of being a predominantly white male profession, and that reflects in our organization. But when the Black Lives Matter movement kind of came to a crisis finally in the U.S., it really was a shakeup for our organization. And I think, one, we're already in a heightened crisis mode. So our emotions were at an all-time high, and our uncertainty and vulnerabilities were at an all-time high. And it really provided a platform for our less prominent members, our members that are traditionally from marginalized communities, to have a voice. And that they did. And we listened, and, we made some mistakes along the way. And it called to question, what are our values and beliefs about being a more inclusive organization? And it really reaffirmed those. And since then, we've committed to knowing that we'll make mistakes, but we're diving into having difficult conversations and committed to moving forward as a organization that has a face of diversity that helps change the impression of what a guide is.
And this leads right into my next line of questioning about inclusion in the mountains. And I love that you are such a strong advocate for inclusion in the mountains. And it's important to me as well. And, I think there's been, as you alluded to, there's been a good old boys club in the world of mountains and mountain guidings. And, I think you've touched on some of the big issues that come to inclusion in the mountains. And I love that you are doing, and you're in such a strong, powerful position to help with inclusion in the mountains. And what else? What do you think the community at large, what can we all do to help augment inclusion in the mountains?
Well, I think we all have a responsibility to educate ourselves, because our education systems in the United States have failed to really provide us with the context of history that we need to face. And I think that we all need to take some responsibility to understand, as white people, our privileges and how that has manifest to create extreme challenges for marginalized communities in every faction of life in the United States. And so really, I think we need to bring empathy to the situation, and we need to realize that we all see the world through different lenses. And when we can understand how other people's experiences have been impacted by elitist attitudes, or just a sense that they don't belong there, that needs to just break down. And we all need to, there was the big All Lives Matter point that a lot of people were bringing up, and it totally missed the mark. And yes, all lives matter, but really we need to see the world through the lens of our BIPOC community that has been marginalized for so long, and really embrace and welcome them to play in the outdoors. But, it's going to go beyond that. And like, how do we overcome some of the barriers, the socioeconomic barriers to actually like playing in the outdoors? For some kids to even have the opportunity to go outside on a playground that isn't cement surrounded by a chain link fence is just something some kids don't have. So I think it's really a call to check our elitism and our attitudes at the door. And really, when we have any opportunity to use our platforms and our voice to be inclusive and educate ourselves, to me, that's going to be a great start.
I think that's all terrific advice and terrific insight. And I see this almost every day in the backcountry, how people can be so exclusive. You don't belong here. You can stay. You get out of here. You're all right. And I very much don't like it. And I see it all the time. It happens to everyone. And that attitude doesn't leave room for anyone that doesn't look like you, especially. You're already being discriminative on such a high level, and people don't even think about it. They think it's cool. And I could go on and on, but I don't see the logic in it. I see you should be inclusive. You should help people. You should be an educator. If something's not going, people aren't making great decisions, you can talk with them and, maybe pass some knowledge on, and you can do it in a nice way. So I agree with everything you're saying here. And I just want to touch on one other point within this point is, you've already talked about, but it's such a guiding, especially in mountains in general, it feels like, but guiding especially is such a male dominated industry. It's no secret. And so, if you are willing to share a little bit of your feelings, what is it like being a woman in this mostly men industry?
It hasn't been super challenging for me. I love men. I always have. A lot of my partners through all my formative experiences in the mountains were men. And I have no problem with that. The challenges have come from being in a group where the conversation goes towards derogatory jokes, or the conversation is somewhat exclusive, which maybe isn't intentional, but a lot of times being a woman in a circle of men, I've experienced where I don't have eye contact. When someone's talking, I can follow their eyes around all the men in the room, but their eyes don't go to me. And that feels very exclusive. And I know I've called a couple friends out on that, and I know it's not intentional, and they maybe haven't been aware of it, but it's created a considerable degree of being uncomfortable in those conversations, even if the conversation didn't revolve around anything that was uncomfortable. It was just the nonverbal communication cues that I was taking away from it.
And that's huge. I see that as well. That just, it doesn't have to be a big thing, because nowadays you might even get called out for the big thing, but it's the little exclusive things that add up and cause pain.
Yeah. And I'm a very straight shooter, and I'm pretty confident for a small pint little pocket guide, and which Andrew McLean calls me.
I like that.
I know. I love that. But I don't hesitate to call people out. But I do know a lot of women aren't comfortable in that. And so for me, it's been really important to build allies as a woman and have conversations with men that I really trust and that I feel like they are empathetic to the issues. And building allies, it's creating a community that will call another person out on maybe things that they don't realize they're doing, but that are impactful on someone else. And because it's very difficult to be the woman in the room of a room full of guys that calls someone out on behavior that she's experiencing that it's uncomfortable. Whereas if there's one of the guys in the room that calls the guy out on it, then that's empowering, and that feels like you're not alone. And so I think for me, building friends and allies and having uncomfortable and open conversations about how it feels to be a woman in a male dominant space helps a lot.
I think that's huge advice. And I want to reiterate that a little bit for our listeners is being an advocate for people who are often excluded is huge, and it's powerful, and it's the right thing to do. And it's so helpful because when you're the group of people, not getting as much opportunity, and being excluded, it shouldn't be up to that group to make make other people understand their perspective. It should be the people in the group that are, essentially oppressing the other people to make those decisions, to make those call outs, to voice their opinions. And I try to do that whenever I can. And it's difficult as well. So nobody's saying this is easy stuff, but that's huge. Being an ally when you're within that group. And I very much am. I'm a white male. And so it's really important to me too, to call that stuff out. And especially as a business leader now, if anybody I work with says something that's derogatory, even if it's relatively common, I'll just stop and I can be nice about it and say, hey, we don't use those words here, and that's not inclusive. And it's important to me that you understand why we don't do that. And just a mini conversation, it can only be a couple sentences and move on. And it is a little bit, you have to be vulnerable to do it. You have to show courage to do that, but it's the right thing to do, and you'll feel awesome afterwards. And you will be moving our community forward. And so we appreciate everybody who makes those challenging maneuvers in their social scene, because it really is impactful. And I'm just going to jump into some numbers here that I think are correct about how we don't have enough female guides. So according to Jane Anderson, I read this recently, who's the logistics coordinator for the American Mountain Guides Association. She made us a note here that about 11% of the ski guiding personnel within the AMGA are women. And then if you factor in rock and alpine guides, so the whole group of guides in the AMGA, the female employment drops to about 8% of the AMGA. Is that about what you're familiar with, those numbers, Angela?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's something that we need to work on. And what do you think the best way is to get women into the guiding circle?
Well, I think what we're doing right now is we're offering women's rock guide courses, which is the entry-level program for the mountain guide program. That could be for gals that are going to stop at the rock guide certification, or they're going to go all the way to IFMGA certification. Those types of programs, I think, just from my experience with Chicks Climbing and Skiing, which I was a co-owner of for a number of years, when you're with a group of people that are like you, like women, mm-hmm. that it's very supportive and encouraging, and it makes, you can look at someone else and they look like you, so you feel like you belong.
Yes.
And I think creating more opportunities for women to experience guide training like that makes it feel empowering, and it gives you a sense of confidence that you're ready to go on into mixed groups. But it's going to take more work and more uncomfortable conversations and more allies, and the AMGA doing its part to step up to train the instructor team, as we have done, but there's certainly more work to do.
That's all really great. And I think that, again, there's so much to do. There's so many facets to it, but the only thing I really understand so far that has been great for women in the mountains is these women-only classes. I think that is so great. I have my friend Lindsay does a Keeley's camp thing. I think they go to Iceland and it's all women, and they say that you can just let your guard down a bit more. Like you said, everybody looks like you, is similar to you. And I love that. And so that's something I personally would love to see more of, is just these all women, instructor trainings, and, just client-based trips and all that. Because the feedback that I've gotten, and again, I don't understand a ton of this, but I'm a big advocate for getting more women into the mountains and into guiding and all of this. But the feedback I've gotten from clients and guides who do these all women trips is just through the roof. They have so much fun. And then I feel like they come out of these trips with this confidence that just translates right into any trip. So now you go with a bunch of guys, you're the only woman maybe, and it just doesn't matter because you have this base, and maybe even a base that you can tap back into, like, hey, I'm going to email or call or connect with my all women's trip that we went before, those people that I connected with there. And man, you guys have just great sounding boards, great resources, and having people that are just directly on your team is always powerful. And so I'm just going to ask one quick question, because you used to be the avalanche forecaster for a heli skiing company in Telluride called Telluride Helitrax. How satisfying is it to throw live bombs out of a helicopter? And how the hell does that work?
It's so much fun. Like there's something so cowboy about it. I just love it. How does it work? Well, we come up with a plan based on conditions, forecasts, what happens with the winds, where we want to ski, what our uncertainty is. And we go out and we test slopes by throwing explosives on them, which is a big impact, much, much bigger bubble of impact than a skier would provide, obviously. So we meet early in the morning with a shot list that the forecaster puts together. And we go up, the helicopter picks us up, and we get bumped up to the ski area where we have our explosives cache, which are all to code. They have 2 locks on them. They're these double metal-sided things with the fuses kept separate from the explosives. And we have our shot list, and we make up, there'll be like 2-3 of us. Sometimes the pilots will help. And we put the fuses in the explosives and get them all taped up, wrapped up. Some of them are breaking up 50-pound bags of AMFO, which is pellets. They're called prill that are infused with diesel fuel. Whoa. And we bust up these 50-pound bags into 3 or 4 smaller bags. And in each one of those bags of prill, we put a shot, like a 5-pound shot that's got a fuse in it. And we tape that up. And then when we've got them all set, we have to do an inventory, because it's all very regulated, as you can imagine, from the government. Yeah. Like explosives in have to equal explosives out.
Oh yeah. Homeland Security, all of it.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Geez. Yeah, it's definitely gotten even more tight.
Oh yeah.
Over the years. And then we load it all into the helicopter, either 2 of us in the back seat or 1 of us in the back seat, and then 1 person in the front seat, which is usually the forecaster or a program director. And we target the places we're going. The pilot totally knows the terrain. And then when we get to close to where we're the basin that we're going to throw a bunch of shots in, the person in the front seat will say, okay, get 3 bags of AMFO, 2 3x8s, and 2 5-pounders ready. And so that's when it gets really busy in the back, because you've got these little caps that you have to take off of the explosives. When you pull one of those, you get a and you get stinky smoke. So before you pull those, you have to put the caps on them to get them all ready. Right. And then when the pilot's positioned in the place where you're going to throw your first shots, the person in the front seat will say, okay, let's get a bag of AMFO out here. And then you'll say, the pilot will tell you, okay, you can open the door. And of course you're got your seatbelt on, but so you're hanging, you open the door, and then you grab the explosives and you pull the cap, and then you're waiting until the person in the front, and you're communicating, okay, lit, pull the cap, and then the person in the front seat tells you when to toss it. And then so you proceed throughout the terrain, which could be numerous basins. And oftentimes we're doing mitigation for a mining operation as well, to mitigate above the road that the workers are going in and out of. So you're very busy. Yes. And it can be very, I've had vertigo a couple times, and you're in the back seat and the helicopter's kind of spinning around to see where you're getting results, and you can smell the charges, and it's like, oh. And usually by the end of the day, you're ready to get out of the helicopter. But the best thing is when you're flying over and watching the results, and you get to see these incredibly beautiful, destructive avalanches. It's almost impossible to that you can say that in the same sentence. But you've cleared the area. It's doing harm to no one. And you get to watch this from the air. And it's just absolutely remarkable to see the force and power of the snow releasing
Yeah. So thank you for taking us through that because I have an old buddy who used to do it years ago, somewhere in Utah, I think in the Uintas. And he was telling me about, you hold the door open with your left foot, and in your right hand, a guy hands you a lit charge and you throw it out. It's like, wow. I mean, obviously I think it's come a long way. Your system sounds very rigid and structured and well-regulated. But I mean, just the idea of you get to throw bombs out of a helicopter, live bombs, and then you get to watch these insane avalanches come down. And I know how big the mountains are in the San Juans, right? It's pretty much everything's a 14,000 foot peak. How long are the fuses? Are they 30-second fuses or longer?
No, they're longer. They're typically 2 to 3 minute fuses. Okay. Yeah. So there's quite a bit of time from when it gets tossed. Oftentimes you can do a whole basin and toss them all, be done with that, and then kind of hover around and watch all the explosives. So there's a considerable delay.
Nice.
Yeah.
So real quick, I think there's somewhere around 138 fully certified guides in the US, 13 of which are women, you informed us. Europe, in contrast, has maybe thousands. Maybe you have some information there. But so why do you think there's so few fully certified guides in the USA versus Europe and other parts of the world?
That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked. There's just under 7,000 fully certified IFMGA guides across the world.
Wow.
And that is only in 26 countries because you have to be a member association. You have to be involved in the training from your national association, which the AMGA is for us to train at the IFMGA standard. And the reason that there's so many in Europe and so few in the US is that the profession is regulated by the government throughout Europe as professions in the United States, such as being an electrician, a doctor, a plumber, have standards associated with the profession that are regulated and required. In the US, guiding evolved as a real pioneering type of profession, as did everything in the United States, evolved from our pioneers, but it never matured into a point where it was formalized early on as guiding got established in the United States. Around an association, there was tremendous resistance amongst early guides to conform to standards, because
sounds like Americans.
Yeah, free-spirited, full, got a bit of that cowboy pioneer spirit. Which I admire, and I think it's grit has created a tremendous diversity in our guides across the U.S. And I have no idea how many people would call themselves guides around the U.S. because it's impossible for us to know since there is no central body.
And that's complicated in itself.
It's very complicated. And, there's a wide range in the U.S. of work for guides and climbing instructors because, a lot of it's very seasonal. Mm-hmm. And in the summer, there's all kinds of work available, all the way from summer camps to rock climbing programs to schools. Even, climbing gyms now are doing a lot of things outside. So there's a wide range, and a lot of people don't choose to have guiding as a full-time job, but certainly sustain a big part of their income doing it seasonally. So that's really why we don't have that many certified guides in the U.S. is one, because it has never been required by the government or the land managers that issue the permits to guide on public lands, or insurance companies that provide insurance for guides to guide on public lands. So that will eventually change. And remarkably, which is a testament to all the guides around the U.S. that have not pursued training and certification, there hasn't been that many accidents. And a lot of times it is major accidents that drive processes like regulations. And so it's a testament to a lot of good work being done out there. But
that's
like anything,
really interesting.
Yeah. Like anything, as things evolve, standards and conforming to regulations are important for public safety. And as we know, guiding has many more risks than plumbing, and there's no reason it really shouldn't be regulated.
No, that's interesting. And I love those numbers are so revealing that if there's 7,000 fully certified guides, only 138 of those are in this huge country, the US, which is one of the largest countries. That's really interesting. But I love your perspective that maybe it hasn't happened because there haven't been too many accidents, because that is often what fuels change. Mm-hmm. I hope that change comes, though. I think we do need to move towards a certified system. And the pushback is going to be ferocious, right? Yeah. And so it's going to be a really interesting process to see it play out. But I do hope it happens sooner than later. And
it is.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, especially with great people like you out there in charge and having this kind of power to push this kind of stuff forward. So let's jump into Mount Everest really quick, because I know you went up there. How many times have you been to Everest? And maybe you went there with an amputee, one of the first disabled summits of Mount Everest. Is that right?
I did. And I've only been there once. Yeah, it was incredible. He was a below the knee amputee. And that was in 98. And that was the only time I've been, that was my first time to Nepal. And I've been back to Nepal 8 times since, but I've never gone on Everest again, and probably won't. I'm really glad in a lot of ways that I didn't summit and that Tom Whitaker, the amputee.
That's great.
One, the trip was about him, and it was his third attempt to climb Mount Everest, and he knew he could do it as an amputee, and he did. He proved it to himself and the world that he could do it. And it was the first recorded disabled ascent. Who knows if one happened before that, but it was certainly the first that we were aware of. And for me, I think my life might have been really different had I summited. And I was happy to humbly step back in feeling that I contributed tremendously to the effort. Climbing Himalayan giants, and you said you talked to Adrian, and I'm sure he portrayed this as well, but climbing 8,000 meter peaks or any big peaks is certainly a team effort, and it takes everybody being committed to the endeavor rather than everybody themselves wanting to get to the top. And of course, everybody wants to get to the top, but often that's just not possible with your resources and fatigue and sickness and all that kind of stuff. And I just really feel that my life has gone in a really good direction that I didn't summit. I mean, I would have been one of the early women to summit Everest, and I probably would have been on speaking tours and who knows what. I maybe would have started a guide on Everest. And I think that I didn't have any limelight there was a positive influence, because it really reaffirmed that I'm doing it all for the right reasons and not for fame or money or recognition. It's just I'm doing it because I'm following my heart.
I love that, Angela. And I think once again, that's just more proof that you are a fantastic team member. And you being a fantastic team member is why you have become such a fantastic leader, because you understand what it takes to be a part of a team. And I love that, for you, the goal of that trip was to get him to the top, and that's what you got done. And that's where your satisfaction comes from. Not everybody could see it that way. So, thanks again for being such an awesome team member. I feel that when I'm with you in Antarctica, and I love that. It's like, she's the boss, but we're on the same team. We are going to do everything we can to help each other. Let's shift to climate change really quick here at the end. What evidence of climate change have you seen in your life?
From my time in the Pacific Northwest, I think that's where I really started the technical guiding for the American Alpine Institute in the early 1992, 1993. I spent a lot of time on Mount Baker, which is beautiful glaciated volcano. And
gorgeous.
All the big volcanoes are up in that zone, and Mount Shuxon's right there. And spending a lot of time as a guide doing the same routes or different routes on the same mountain over and over again, you really become intimate with how things look and how things feel and changes that are happening. And over the course of my career, the changes that I've seen in the Pacific Northwest and also the smaller glaciers in the Tetons has been dramatic. It's caused tremendous risk, increased risk. That's my dog wanted. Why are we playing with the ball?
Go dogger.
I'm just seeing a lot more natural rock fall, a lot more serac hazard, things that you would associate with time of day are becoming more uncertain. You can have rock fall any time of day. Temperatures just, we're not reaching those long freezing points that we often have. And a lot of the time, our winters much warmer, and even not focusing just on the mountains and glaciation. It's, on the approaches, the changes in vegetation that we're seeing with the impacts of beetle kill.
Oh, yeah.
The beetles need a certain number of days well below freezing in a winter to kill the larva. And certainly as with warmer winters overall, the beetle kill's gotten much worse. And certainly throughout Colorado, it's very bad right now. And then on the trips that you and I have done in Antarctica over the years, certainly observing larger icebergs. Remember when we got trapped by those giant icebergs that kind of shut us down for a while? I mean, we had never seen anything that large. All these things.
Yeah, it's crazy to be out skiing with your clients and you get a radio call, get back to the ship right now. Icebergs are threatening the ship. Oh, all right. Well, yeah, I'm in for that because I'm not sure what to do without that ship. So yeah, no, climate change has been absolutely just modifying the mountain environment so much in so many ways. And she keeps referring to the beetle kill, and that's generally pine trees. So when you get out in the mountains, you'll see there's just a lot more dead pine trees. So what's next for your journey, Angela? What might be next for you? Is there anything you're looking forward to or planning or something new and exciting?
Oh, man. Well, next is just really getting back on my feet 100%. I was really looking forward to going to Svalbard this year with the Ice Axe expeditions.
Oh, I love that trip.
We haven't completely shut that down, but I think there's a high chance that it'll be canceled again. It was canceled last year. So that's really high on my list, is to spend a little more time in the Arctic. I've never seen a polar bear.
I'm 0 for 3.
Oh,
I've done 3. I've guided 3 trips now. I haven't seen one. I saw prints.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not too keen to carry a gun while I'm ski guiding. That's certainly not.
They're so heavy.
Yeah, it looks
like I think the ones we had were something like 18 pounds or something. Like, gosh. Let's get some new guns.
Yeah, so there's still a lot of places in the world that I want to see. I haven't been to Africa. I want to go on a safari. I just love nature. I love animals. I love that connection. So for me, it's probably as I start to ease out of more technical guiding, I want to get more into just spending time in nature and just connecting, like that deep sense of belonging to the earth and feeling the pulse of the earth, and not necessarily trying to do more, but just be more.
And the last question is, I love to ask all my guests this year, is the COVID silver lining. This ski season is crazy. Everything has been crazy for the last year, but there have been some silver linings. Have you seen any silver linings during the coronavirus pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's really helped us all get a sense of the things that we have taken for granted, and the time that we've been able to spend with our friends and family that we haven't been able to do. So I feel like in the distancing, it's really helped us connect more and appreciate those connections we have. And in the silence and introspection that it's allowed, because we have been forced inside and forced to just have a lot more time on our hands, that it's really, for me, the silver lining is learning how to pause and not just keep doing, but really pause before I react, or pause before I make a plan, and to really just check in and feel if that is the right thing to do. And I think we're also wound up and doing. I think for a lot of us, this has provided an amazing opportunity, silver lining, to just appreciate all that we have and really come out of this with a lot more gratitude and empathy than we went into it with.
I love your perspective on this, and the pause is so important. When you do get into mindfulness and meditation, that's really what it is all about. It's about pausing stopping and just feeling what's happening right now. So that's a great perspective and a great silver lining from what's happening here with COVID. So Angela, that's all I've got for you. Do you have any other thoughts you'd like to share here at the end of the show?
I just am such an honor to be here, Miles. I love your podcast. I love you and the work that you do and the stoke that you shine into the world. But how awesome to be on a podcast that you've already interviewed so many of my heroes. And I'm just grateful.
Well, thank you, Angela. I love you too. You are a fantastic human being. I very much look forward to seeing you again soon. Once we get all this COVID stuff figured out, hopefully I'd love to do a Svalbard trip with you. We should talk about that.
We should talk about that.
All right. Well, it's great talking with you, Angela. I hugely appreciate you. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks so much, Miles. You're the best.
Thank you so much for listening to the SnowBrains podcast. If you liked this podcast, please share with your friends and family, and please subscribe. To find out more about SnowBrains, please visit us at snowbrains.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at SnowBrains. This episode of the SnowBrains podcast is brought to you by Icon Pass. Whether you ride 4 days next winter or whether you carve out over 20, there is a pass perfect for your next adventure. From the $399 Icon Session Pass 4-day to the far-reaching Icon Base Pass to the full access Icon Pass, now is the time to own the stoke and start dialing into what awaits. 21-22 Icon Pass, now on sale. This episode was edited by Robert Wilkinson. The music was done by Chad Crouch. I'm your host, producer, and creator, Miles Clark.